I am concerned about the most recent and growing news regarding men, more specifically, Black men who are taking the lives of their wives and children. There were even quite a few within the past couple months who unalived their own mothers. Now, I understand that this isn't new. My first time ever hearing about someone taking the life of a family member was when I was about 13, 14 years old. There was a really heinous crime that happened just down the street from where I lived. Three brothers, Nearcos, Vaughn, and Reginald, aka Reggie Brooks, in East Cleveland, Ohio, whose lives were taken at the hands of their father. I believe it made national news, and it's still discussed even today. We didn't have social media back then. And because of the quick and easy access to the news via social media, we are seeing it like never before on a massive scale. When I heard about the former deputy governor, Justin Fairfax, who shot and killed his wife, Karina, then turned the gun on himself, I instantly felt this tremendous concern for the mental health of the Black man. I'm not condoning what he did. However, the situation is immensely tragic on both sides. The hard truth is that there were two lives that were taken. Regardless how anyone feels about Justin Fairfax, he was a living, breathing soul. He was not only a husband who unalived his wife, but he was also a father, son, brother, cousin, friend to somebody. Each of them had their own unique experience with him. We didn't know the man. We just knew of him through the news because of the tragic event that unfolded in April. But there are people who knew him personally. And then there is one who knows him like no other. People, especially Black women, may feel that
I'm trying to make excuses for him.
the problem with that is this: all the accusations are not helping the situation. They are not the solution to the problem. They actually only help to perpetuate it. And I will explain why here in a little bit. I've watched my father struggle with alcoholism as a child. I witnessed him beat my mother once. Now, I didn't see it, but I heard it. Although it was only once that I could recall, and he was drunk at the time, but one time is too many, and I never forgot it. I remember that it was provoked because he was in a happy mood, and then after being provoked, it turned violent. I remember my grandmother, my grandfather, and my uncle coming over to talk to my dad. They did not threaten him, beat him down, yell at him, criticize him, cuss him out. They just sat down and had a discussion with him, approached him with love and care and concern. And my granddad insisted that he go get help. My granddad, he was a deacon in his church, and I tell you, he took his position as a deacon seriously.
However, the Bible described the duties of a deacon. That's what my granddad did.
My grandma was a deaconess at the church. Now, I don't know if she was at that time, if she was a deaconess at that time, but they were my first examples of God's love and discipleship. My dad had the utmost respect for my grandparents, and he was their son. They treated him not like a son-in-law, but like their own son. And my uncle treated him like a brother. That's the way it was on that side of the family. And that was, their times, that generation. My parents ended up separating, getting a divorce, and my dad attended AA meetings. A few years later, my mom and dad remarried. I love my dad. And in my eyes, since I was a little girl, he was a good man, my hero. He was good to me, a good provider, but I also knew that he dealt with a lot. There were things he carried that were felt but unspoken. It was like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He married my mom when he was only 19. It was 1970, the beginning of the post-civil rights era. So, just a little history. African Americans face significant disparities during this time despite civil rights gains, marked by intense hyper-segregation and increasing wealth gap. Black unemployment remained persistent, twice that of whites, with limited job opportunities due to a shift away from manufacturing and continued discrimination. Black men were largely restricted to lower level industrial or service jobs, with limited penetration into higher salaried white collar positions. And that was despite some progress in the industrial sector. While legal segregation ended, racial inequality was maintained through law and order, and voter suppression continued. Despite civil rights advancement, racial tension was still high. Yet Black men in relationships were expected to be respectful, to do all the lovey-dovey stuff while being strong, to provide security for their family. They had to be providers and taking on the responsibility of the household with very little during this time of immense social change. And
They better not drop the ball.
the societal pressure of that era, which often equated emotional vulnerability with weakness, made it difficult for Black men to express personal struggles, often constrained by traditional notions of masculinity that discouraged outward vulnerability, such as the mantra that real men don't cry. A few years ago, I was watching this telenovela during my Spanish learning journey. Telenovela means soap opera in Spanish. The time period was during the transatlantic slave trade. I'm not sure what part of Latin America the series took place. I think it may have been Colombia. There was a scene where this slave was talking to another slave who was fresh off the boat. The one who had been there for a while was telling the newcomer, who was scared and crying, that he had to hush it up, hold it in, that he couldn't show any emotions, because if he did, the taskmasters would target him and make his whole existence pure hell. I am bringing up a little history only because we have to understand how trauma runs through the generations when it's not properly dealt with. I hear people all the time talk about how slavery ended a long time ago, not understanding the history and how this is going from generation to generation. And they speak from this safe, comfortable place, unaffected, while systems of oppression still remain intact. Just because it doesn't affect you doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because a certain percentage of Black people are living the American dream doesn't mean everyone was given the same support systems, opportunities, resources, had the same family values and upbringing to do the same. Many are fighting this deep, quiet inner struggle, this emotional, mental, spiritual battle.
I know, Black women, we went through our own stuff as well, and we are still going through.
However, if we could just drop who went through the most and stay on topic of the Black man for just for right now, and take a moment, understand, acknowledge how they've been stripped from their humanity and how they are still being stripped from their humanity even today with society, seeing it as being weak for them to show emotion, to feel hurt, to talk about childhood trauma. That's really all men, but our Black men. I know that this is a humanity issue that crosses gender and race, ethnicity, cultures. But once again, I want to focus on the Black man right now. Women are catered to a lot when it comes to mental and emotional health. Culture and society is more empathetic towards women, while men tend to suffer in silence. They are expected to suck it up like it's a badge of honor, strength. But when something awful happens as a result, they are an animal to be locked up.
A monster to be obliterated from the face of the earth.
I understand that we all need to take accountability for our own healing, but what do you do when society tells you
You gotta suck it up. Man up. Emotions are for sissies.
this has been going on for centuries? We tell little boys who are a little more sensitive to suck it up, to man up.
Where do you think decades of sucking it up will eventually lead to?
Emotions are meant to be in constant motion, recognized, felt, processed, then to flow through, then out. They aren't meant to be suppressed. What do you do with centuries of programming? We live in a world where more and more awareness on mental and emotional health is being put out there. I don't see a whole lot for men in general, yet more lives are taken by the hands of men. Although I feel things are getting better, there is still a lot of work to be done, and there is still this stigma. And if there is this stigma when it comes to men being in touch with their emotions, even getting help to cope with their emotions, especially within the Black culture, including Black churches, this same mindset will continue to be passed down to the next generation. I'm concerned. And with that concern, I had to ask myself, what can I do? I'm always talking to my sons concerning mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health. The only thing I can do is provoke thought through conversation and bring awareness on this channel where the focus is holistic healing and wellness, mind, body, and spirit, with the hopes that maybe someone will get it. Maybe someone will run with their own message on healing. Maybe someone who is going through their own journey can find support here, a safe place here. This is not about getting you to feel sorry for anyone, because feeling sorry isn't going to help anyone. It's an inappropriate response, especially when it enables destructive behavior or a victim mentality, which hinders personal growth instead of putting them on the path towards healing. Feeling sorry only puts the emotional responsibility on you. And that burden is not for you to carry. It's not for us to fix anybody, but to provide support as they walk their own path towards healing. Do you feel the call to action? Look, there were signs leading up to that tragedy. Men go through things like women. They get overwhelmed, depressed, battle with anxiety, grief. Let me say this real quick because I feel it in my spirit. Someone saying,
but he was under the influence of a demon.
first of all, the mind is the gatekeeper to the soul. So before anyone gets into the comment section to shout demon, understand that if the mind is unwell, has a crack in it, yes, the soul is compromised. It can absolutely leave an opportunity for spiritual influence. So with that being said, we are right back at mental health. So anyway, here are my thoughts as to what I feel needs to be done. We need to bring more awareness. Churches need to stop making therapy a stigma or slapping anointing oil on a mental health issue, trying to drive out a demon when it's a mental illness that may need medication. Stop making it seem like mental health is not important, that the only thing that's important is attending church, paying tithes, and living holy. Church is a place where broken souls go for healing, but they leave even more broken. Just so you know, God does address the importance of your mental health in the Bible. Religion or religious folk are really good at taking a lawnmower to the weeds, when spiritual warfare requires you to uproot the weeds to get to the root cause. Mental issues are oftentimes generational. There are a lot of mentally messed up people in the church because religious people are good at wearing masks, hiding behind this cloak of religion. I also want to suggest to get more involved when you notice something going on with a friend or family member. I know sometimes you may not want to get involved, but there are ways to talk with someone through genuine love and concern. Definitely be prayerful. All they can say is, I don't want to talk about it, or no. Honor that. In the meantime, cover them in your prayers, and if or when they are ready or comfortable coming to you, just be there. Talk about mental health resources or programs available for men. There are even therapy apps. Share your story, especially men who have personal experiences they were able to overcome. Give them a safe place. This is especially important for us women to provide when the men in our lives are trying to share what's going on with them. Oftentimes, women can get easily offended and not hear them out.
We can be quick with our tongues and shut down a brother.
Learn to listen and encourage them to get the help they need. It'll probably help to get into therapy together. Teach our sons that it is a necessary part of overall well-being, like bathing, brushing their teeth, having annual physicals, exercise, and eating their vegetables, in which many of our men often need help in those areas as well. Make professional help more affordable and accessible by expanding insurance coverage for mental health. Share videos by mental health professionals or people who have came out on the other side. There are signs. Men tend to express issues through silence, aggression, anger, because Society labels men as weak for expressing hurt any other way. Oftentimes, it just naturally comes to this point when they aren't heard or feel seen, or they just can't express what they need to express. People label this as masculinity, but it's really a false sense of masculinity. It's not healthy. I think it helps tremendously coming from other men, especially men who have been in the same situation or similar. Men who know how to point them in the right direction. Men they highly respect. As a whole, let's educate ourselves so that we can recognize the signs. Let's use what's in our hand to bring about change, whether it's our experiences, our expertise. Ultimately, it's each person's responsibility to heal. I understand that you can't force anyone to do anything.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
I would even say educate our young women, even encourage healing in our women who tend to over romanticize relationships, who even put their men with toxic behavior on this pedestal. That doesn't force them to look at themselves or take accountability. Many of us overlook and make excuses for abuse due to our own childhood trauma. We'll focus on the times he was loving, kind, and attentive, but rationalize all the times he shut down, went silent, went MIA, was emotionally, verbally, or even physically abusive, and we end up staying way too long to our own detriment. We truly believe we can save them. We lose ourselves in the process. I don't care how many letters you have after your name, how successful you are in business. It can happen to you too. And if by chance we manage to escape that relationship alive, many of us do not take the time to sit with ourselves long enough and learn from the experience before we hop right into the next relationship. We don't stay out long enough to heal. Heck, we hadn't even healed from the wounds of our childhood that many of us don't even know is the issue that drives us into the toxic and abusive relationships in the first place. We continue the cycle with every man that will have us, or sink into a deep depression, or in a lot of instances grow bitter. And men have their own toxic relationships with women as well.
This world is just full of broken people.
But simply complaining about it, bashing each other and tearing each other down after a devastating act will not change the course for future generations. The cycle will only continue. Healing starts with accountability. Being able to take accountability for the role you played in the whole situation and what you do after the fact. Many people don't even realize they are messed up emotionally or mentally.
That's where I've always been. That's just my life. There's people who are much worse than I am.
Sometimes facing trauma is too painful because it is so deeply ingrained into the whole fabric of our being. And this is why holistic healing, mind, body, and spirit is so important. Men's health affect our health and vice versa. So it should be just as important.